Every weekend, 20 football clubs from one mid-sized island play a game invented in the 1860s, and the pictures are beamed into more than 600 million homes across more than 200 territories. It is the most watched sports league on Earth, and by far the richest. And here is the strange part. It was born at the lowest moment English football has ever known, out of burned stadiums, locked gates, and national shame. It began quite literally with a resignation letter. This is the story of the breakaway. This is the Premier League. To understand the breakaway, you have to understand the wreckage it climbed out of. In the 1980s, English football was played in Victorian stadiums that had barely been touched in a lifetime. Standing terraces, wooden stands, steel fences to cage the crowds in. And the decade turned brutal. In May 1985, a fire tore through a wooden stand in Bradford. 56 people died. Weeks later, at the European Cup final in Brussels, a wall collapsed after crowd trouble at Heysel. 39 died, and every English club was banned from European competition for 5 years. The national game became a national embarrassment. Attendances sank to their lowest levels since the First World War. Then came the worst day of all. Sheffield, April 1989. A fatal crush on the terraces of Hillsborough that would ultimately claim 97 lives. The official inquiry that followed, the Taylor Report, ordered the top divisions to tear out the terraces and rebuild every major ground as all-seater. So picture English football entering the 1990s, shamed abroad, mourning at home, and handed a renovation bill it had no idea how to pay. Now, where would that money come from? Television. But English football had a problem of its own making. All 92 professional clubs across 4 divisions were bound together in the Football League, founded 1888, the oldest league in the world, and television money was shared through the whole family. The biggest clubs, the ones the cameras actually came for, got a fraction of what their matches earned. So in the autumn of 1990, a television executive named Greg Dyke sat down to dinner with the men who ran 5 giants: Arsenal, Everton, Liverpool, Manchester United, and Tottenham Hotspur, and put a simple, dangerous idea on the table. What if the top clubs simply left the Football League, formed their own competition, and sold their own television rights, sharing with no one below? A breakaway needed a blessing, and it found a surprising one: the Football Association, the game's ancient governing body and the Football League's old rival. The FA published a grand plan for the future of football, and at its heart sat the new league, under FA patronage. It looked like reform. It worked like a coup. On the 17th of July 1991, the top clubs signed the founder members agreement. Then, one by one, 22 clubs posted their resignation from the Football League. After 104 years, the family was broken. The new league had everything it needed, except the one thing the whole plot was about: a television deal. May the 18th, 1992, a London hotel. The new league meets to sell 5 years of its future. In one corner, ITV, the terrestrial establishment, the network that already showed the football. Its final offer, £262 million. In the other corner, a satellite broadcaster that was losing millions, Sky. For Rupert Murdoch, live football wasn't programming. He would later call sport his battering ram into people's living rooms. Sky's bid, with the BBC taking the highlights, £304 million, the biggest television deal in the history of British sport, and the vote carried its own legend. Tottenham's chairman, Alan Sugar, whose electronics company happened to manufacture satellite dishes, was overheard on a phone that morning telling Sky's side, reportedly, to blow the opposition out of the water. The clubs voted 14-6. Sky won. 3 months later, on the 15th of August 1992, the whistle blew on a new era, and the first goal in Premier League history was headed in by Brian Deane of Sheffield United, against, of all teams, Manchester United. Football came back dressed as show business. Monday night matches, fireworks, even cheerleaders. And when the first season ended, Manchester United were champions, their first English title in 26 years, and the start of an empire. So, how does the machine actually work? 20 clubs, trimmed down from the original 22 in 1995. Everyone plays everyone, home and away. 38 matches. No playoffs for the crown, no franchises. Most points wins the title. But the real genius of the design is at the bottom. Every May, a trapdoor opens. The 3 worst teams are expelled, relegated to the championship, the division below, and 3 others climb up to replace them. Nothing is owned. Everything is rented. A bad year can cost a club hundreds of millions, and that fear is precisely what keeps every single match worth televising. And the television money? Here, the Breakaway League made a choice that saved it. The domestic rights are shared surprisingly equally, half split evenly among all 20 clubs, the rest by final position and by how often your matches are shown. The champion earns only around 1.5 times what the last place club earns, the flattest split in major European football. Below the trapdoor, though, the cliff is real. A Premier League club receives tens of millions in central payments every season. An average championship club, barely 2. To soften the fall, relegated clubs take parachute payments, tens of millions spread over the following seasons, which, critics point out, mostly turn the championship into a waiting room for the recently rich. 33 seasons on, the scale is hard to believe. That first deal, £304 million, has grown into rights worth billions per cycle at home and even more abroad. The latest domestic contract alone approaches £7 billion. The league that fled its own family now bankrolls much of the pyramid beneath it. On the pitch, for all the money, only 7 names have ever been engraved on the trophy. Manchester United 13 times, Manchester City 8, Chelsea 5, Arsenal 3, Liverpool 2, and 1 each for Blackburn Rovers and Leicester City, the 5,000-1 champions of 2016, perhaps the greatest upset in the history of team sport. But the breakaway carried its logic within it. A so-called Big Six pulled away from the rest. And in 2021, that logic completed the circle. 6 English clubs signed up for a breakaway European Super League and abandoned it within about 48 hours when their own supporters revolted. The league born from a breakaway had become the establishment, fighting off breakaways of its own. Britain's answer: plans for an independent regulator for the national game. Because the one thing everyone now agrees on is that football is too valuable to be left entirely to itself. So that is the Premier League, a 130-year-old game, rebuilt in a boardroom in 1992, born of disaster, raised by television, guarded by a trapdoor. From a resignation letter to 600 million living rooms, the most watched league on earth remembers exactly what it was built from. And every May, when the trapdoor opens, it reminds 20 clubs at once. In this league, nothing is forever.